No Tormented. I am your host, Nathan, and once again, this is a Malifaux stream where we go through a battle report. I'm hoping to have some conversation with you there in the chat, and we'll talk about what the game looked like and what I could do better, what I could do worse, and just learn something about Malifaux if I can. So, looking at this week's game, we had a deployment of flank deployment. The strat was public enemies. The schemes were assassinate, breakthrough, vendetta, let them bleed, and spread them out. So this is what we were looking at for the battlefield. You can kind of see in the middle we had a lot of these tombstones that aren't going to usually block line of sight, but they'll oftentimes block pushes, which matters a lot for Perdita because of those bravado pushes she gets. You had a bunch of those clouds there that are just severe terrain, or not severe, are concealing terrain. Again, would probably matter for Perdita more than anything else, but because of their ability to get focus going, it really wasn't the biggest deal in the world. We've got some ruins over here. I might get my big pen out for that. So we got our ruins over here and some nice big buildings. We tend to treat these types of things as severe, concealing, and dense. Same with this big one here. So that was going to be stuff that you could, in large part, could be hidden in. Now, knowing kind of what was going on, Jackdaw was going to be deploying over in this corner. I was down here. I figured, honestly, if he didn't come to me, I could set up right around here and shoot him up, and it'd be hard for a Jackdaw crew to respond. I saw myself as the beatdown in this one, but I also knew that I could take advantage of my range advantage to be the beatdown from afar. Hey, there's someone in the chat. Good to see you, Trick. We've talked a lot on the forum, so I'm glad to see you here. So looking at the crews for tonight, we had Perdita with lead line coat, an enslaved Nephilim, Fiona with lead line coat, Frank, the guild steward, the orderly, and a monster hunter. The orderly was kind of my unusual take here, I'd say. I don't usually like the orderlies. I don't think they're very good, but I wanted some extra healing in this crew, and I didn't want to take the Domador. 8 points seemed like a lot for that, so I ended up leaving the Domador behind, going with the orderly. Looking back on it, I'm not sure if it was a worthwhile trade or not, but I'll go through why as we go. My opponent's crew had Lady Legia, a hanged with servant, guilty with servant, Jacuna, a Montresor, a Drown, and the Prospector. It's funny, Rob, what you end up seeing with the, at least for me, is my opponents will take 2 hang and put servant on both of them. It helps with their mobility problems as well as the terrifying, and it's just it makes it really hard to deal with them. Going into this matchup, honestly, I figured that I would be able to get past the terrifying enough to be okay. I have trouble with terrifying in Perdita because of the extra card, all the cards that Jack eats, and I want to have them for Aporel, so I decided to make a crew that wasn't really focusing on Aporel here. That's part of why you see what you do. I've been wanting to try Fiona and Perdita for a while. It made sense. She's got a fragile crew. He fixes that. I agree with Trick that the hanged, I had a huge fear of them from last edition. I've still seen them seem to magnet the red Joker and black Joker, but the more I play against them, I think they're necessary for Jack, but I don't know that the amount of resources you put into them with attuned is gonna end up being worthwhile. So, thinking about the schemes, as I'll go back through them again. We had spread them out, breakthrough, let them bleed, assassinate, and vendetta. I mean, spread them out and breakthrough seemed like dead schemes to me here. He had a prospector, which was going to make those hard anyways. I had Perdita, which was going to do the same. We were both going to be trying to kill each other, especially kill those medium high point models, which would make vendetta, let them bleed, both very valuable. I thought Jack, I get Jack down to 3 wounds all the time. It's just that he pops back up. It's just a matter. The question is, does he do it start of the turn or end of the turn? A lawyer in Dita. I've seen it and I liked it when I saw it. I don't remember when I was building this crew if I thought about putting it in there and decided to take it out for the healing or what. But yeah, I can definitely see a lawyer being valuable to get extra focus, extra shots. You can get some real value out of that. So thinking about my schemes, I knew I was going to do vendetta. The monster hunter puts out a lot of damage, probably a little more fragile than I would like, but I can deal with that. So Trick said that his crew is usually Fiona with leadline code Stewart, Nino, Lawyer, Abuela, and Frank. There's nothing I don't like about that crew. It seems really solid. It's got a lot of pieces that I like in it. I have not made Abuela really feel good to me, but other than that, I can see the value with the extra actions especially. So pre-turn 1 planning, figuring out his schemes. Now, my opponent's takes the assassinate against me all the time. I'm going to make that hard with Perdita and Fiona. As long as I keep Perdita near Fiona, that's going to be difficult. Both Vendetta and Let Them Bleed make getting damage onto Frank and Fiona important, so I've got a boatload of stones. I'm going to use them to protect those two. I agree about Frank hitting stat 8. That's a good point. If he has Let Them Bleed, I'm hoping that my healing can keep it from scoring. But if he scores 1 or 2, if Frank, Fiona, and Perdita are all standing, the killing I'm going to do is going to be way more than he can handle. So I'm not too worried about it. So looking at deployment. So this is a little off. Probably would have been better for me to put the picture on the right over to the left and vice versa. But the deployment zone was along here and like there. So you can kind of see he's got the guilty over near the edge, Leila Gia, the hanged, Jack, the drowned, Montress are there on the corner. That's actually I'll talk about that in a bit. I think that was a big problem. And Jacuna on the end there. For me, I've got Frank, Perdita, and Fiona set up as in a basically bunker situation together. I don't like where I put the Monster Hunter. He was a little too closed off and couldn't use his pushes that way. You got the Nephilim in the back to give the pushes, and the Orderly and the Steward in position to drop a ski marker for Fiona early, then move up and heal things. Let me erase that mess. So, going into that turn, at the end of turn 1, here's kind of what went down. Perdita moved up and took a shot at the guilty. The guilty had used Servant to get to right about here. And Perdita moved up, pushed forward towards him, and did enough to get him down to 1 wound. Now, at that point, he ran the guilty away. I don't know if it's because it was Vendetta, but that would be my guess. I didn't think about that at the time, but him running the guilty away just seemed like an unusual play. Now, unfortunately, getting him to 1 wound was a mistake. I was just hoping to do a little scaring of him. But he was able to, he took all that damage, which was going to make it so I could only get 1 Vendetta point. Jacuna moved up into this cloud here. The Monster Hunter took a double negative pot shot at her just to try to hit the red and succeeded at that, which meant that I was able to get stunned out on Jakuna as well as doing 4 damage. It was a pretty big deal, or it may have been 5 damage reduced to 4 because of Incorp, but whatever it was, it put Jakuna in a place where she had to be very scared of getting killed. You've got Jack up here next to her, Montressor in the back. Montressor got pushed up by Jack, but used his 2 activations to push, I think, the Hanged and the Guilty, which was part of how the Guilty got out there. Now, this is where I didn't like where Montressor was placed, because he was so far back, he was never going to be in the place to be the tar pit his crew needed. And just having that many points, just if you look at it right here, this many points out of the fight, that wasn't going to go well for him. The Monster Hunter had, as I said, moved up and shot Jakuna, moved back with his end of turn ability. The Orly's there. I got the Steward and the Orly and the Neff all kind of back in this back area. I don't like that decision, but I really don't know what I would have done differently about it. The Hanged and Lady Legia, I believe, are in this shadow here. I honestly am not positive on that. And then we've got the Drowned on this corner. So, at the end of turn 1, start thinking about, okay, what schemes does my opponent have? Clean up my mess. And we've got, I'm sure he's got Assassinate. I can't imagine him not taking it. And it seems like he was trying to line things up on Perdita. So I'm keeping her close to Fiona. I still think he's got Vendetta on one of my 2 beaters. But I should have realized when he moved the Guilty back, it probably meant he had Vendetta with the Guilty on someone. He likes to get me to kill the Guilty and then try to kill that model. But since he backed him off, I knew that I should have known something was up. I didn't put that together at the time, though. All right, end of turn 2. Turn 2, the fight got going in earnest, obviously. Here, a couple things that... Oh, you know what? I missed something in turn 1 that I should probably talk about. Frank is back here in front of Perdita, but Frank actually got out here and charged the Drowned. I blew a focus on an attack, and that was... and was able to hit once, but because of his combat effectiveness, I wasn't able to put the Drowned down. I pulled Frank back with Bring It so that I wouldn't be too exposed. I still didn't like being so far forward. It was kind of against my plan, but it seemed to work out. So turn 2, you can see the fight really got going in earnest here. Perdita was able to, I want to say second activation, because I think he went with Montressor first and obeyed 2 more things, which again left Montressor back there to not get to do anything. Really not something I would have done, but... So we got Montressor goes, he's back here. Perdita activates, drops a focus and a stone so that I'm still at a plus slip, and I have a high ram in my pocket, so I just take out Jakuna, removing her from the board. The Drowned comes out here and takes some shots, or takes a shot at my group but misses. Legia gets right in the middle of everything. I could have sworn Legia was still in there, but I must have killed Legia with Fiona. And I think Fiona killed the Drowned as well that turn. We had the Hanged had moved up. He's gotten out a couple of his upgrades at this point. I want to say the Hanged's upgraded on Frank, and Fiona's got Jack's upgrade, or maybe he got to start the next turn. Orly's moved up to start to heal people. Same thing with the steward. Perdita's in the back there. I'm going to see if I can get rid of this bar across the bottom. I don't know why it's insisting on showing, but oh well, I'll have to figure that out later. As I said, so we got Jack. Jack takes like a hit or two. Or I think just 1 point of damage. We've got the hang there. We got Frank. Fiona's gone into Jack. Actually, Fiona went into the drown, which is how we got that part clear there. Oh, I lost the chat. There we go. The Monster Hunter is kind of off the board over here, or off the picture over here. Same with the Neff, and again, the Guilty is just not participating at this point. I've scored 1 point because I've killed Jakuna to get the first point, and Fiona's got a Public Enemies point. I know I'm only limited to 1 vendetta point at this point. So going into the next turn, how did he kill the... that looks old. Alright. Ignore what it says there. That's actually from the last episode, and somehow I absolutely missed it. At that point, he had not declared any schemes yet, and neither did I. It looks like I just completely missed this slide when I was going through them earlier. High production values, that's what I'm known for more than anything else. So, going to turn 3, we've got the scrum in the middle has continued. I've rotated the board a little bit. Montressor moved up and obeyed the hanged. The hanged uses that to jump over here, get after the orderly. Or sorry, the hanged did that on his own turn. I think he charged someone during Montressor's turn. Frank is able to take down Jack with all those swings he can take. Perdita and the Monster Hunter are both getting kills, and Fiona still got 1 public enemy point at that point. Since Jack went down on the 1 turn, I knew I was only going to get 1 for assassinate, but honestly, at this point, his stuff was so spread out that there was no real danger of me losing the attrition battle, and I was feeling pretty good. Oh, I did forget. So on this turn, he actually mentions to me that he has Vendetta. I don't think it would have mattered, but he mentions to me that he's got it with the orderly. He hasn't attacked Perdita yet, so I'm not worried about assassinating. I assume let them bleed, but he hasn't tried to put down any markers, so the other 2 schemes that I thought were dead still are. And I'm checking with the chat. Can y'all still hear me? Alright, good. So is there anything you all are seeing in the game that I'm missing? Because I always like to hear from what you all think. I'm not going to learn anything from my own jabbering, so I always like to get your reads on these things. Going into turn 4 then. So, I'm sorry for the blurry picture here. This is what I get for rushing it. Basically, the main story for turn 4 was Perdita. Frank was able to get Montressor down to his demise. And then Fiona missed everyone. Absolutely everyone. The Hang killed the Monster Hunter before I could activate the Monster Hunter. And then Perdita went off. He didn't have many cards left in hand. And Perdita just flipped well, kept hitting the quick reflexes trigger, and by the end of her turn, she had killed the prospector from full wounds, the hang from full wounds, and done the 4 damage to the Montressor that was needed to kill it. Now, Rob, I do agree with you there. And I think I mentioned it when we were talking about the game in the Swamp Fiends chat, but I'll mention it here too. Without a sniper type model like Hans or something like that, I don't know how they could have a good way to attack this list in this scheme set, because you don't want to come to her and she's going to outrange you. Maybe a gun line with a lot of armor, but it was really going to struggle to get there. So at that point, all I had left was the Vendetta, which he was trying to keep alive for that Vendetta point. If he had let them bleed, I think everyone was damaged at that point, and he had killed my healer, so he'd score 1 at the end for that. But that was really going to be a big loss, because he wasn't going to get both Frank and Fiona down to that halfway point. So, end of the game, as I said, we had the board at this turn where the guilty was the only thing left. Now, a caveat for this is I may have cheated, and I think this is the second game in a row I've had to say that. So, what I forgot, Fiona had to upgrade to give her staggered at the start of the turn. She took 2 walk actions to get out there, and I'm not sure that she had the walk to do it otherwise. But I was able to, I used the Neff to obey her up, and then walk the Neff behind Perdita and push Perdita up. Fiona then walked up, did bring it on Perdita, moving her up to Fiona, and at that point she was able to double walk to get the line of sight to kill the guilty who hadn't had a chance to move from his spot. I think he may have won initiative, but there was nowhere where he could go, because it wasn't better to be in the forest, it was better to use it to block. There was nowhere he could go that was going to be more protected than there. So that was the game at that point, because he had no more models on the board. I scored my 4th strat point. I got 1 for assassinate at the end of the game. He was unable to score any of his points that game. So John couldn't join us in the stream this evening, so I wanted to ask him what he thought, kind of his thoughts about the game. The big thing was Jakuna was in that cloud in the front, and he thought Jakuna was safe there between Severe Continents and it's funny that we always joke about being continents rather than countenance, but in the concealing and the Severe Continents, that it'd be hard for me to shoot him, and that he thought she'd be safe otherwise, and if I wanted to go into her, I'd have to put myself at risk at a level that I really didn't want to do. When he came forward, and because of Perdita's long range, I was able to make that hit. And then after that, he had to come to me because I had a point, and it could have ended up a 1-0 game if he stayed back, and that doesn't do him any good. The guilty was a little fragile for a vendetta. I mean, I can see the thinking on putting that on vendetta on the guilty. I think I would have gone with it on the hanged in a bigger model, but it was going to be hard with Fiona in there. So his plan was to send Drowned and Montressor up the middle, and then Hanged and Jack around the edges. Now, if you look at the board again, he was coming from up here, bringing the Hanged and Jack around the sides, and then Drowned in the middle. If the fight was here, it was going to be hard for him. I think he would have been better off if the fight had been almost in his deployment zone. But it was going to be a tough thing to manufacture. So again, a 5-0 win for me. It was not our closest game, but sometimes you'll have games like this. I find Perdita to kind of be a swingy master. Sometimes I haven't had many close games with her, but I've had a lot of blowouts in one direction or the other. So I like this list. It would have trouble with armor if it was something like Hoffman or Samurai with stealth. I can see this list having trouble. They wouldn't be able to grind through that armor enough, and it would give me trouble. The Orly could have been a monster hunter, could have been a Domador, and I think it would have been a better take than the Orly itself. Just both for durability and for killingness. The problem with the Domador is at that point it's 2 public enemy points, and I really wanted to keep that down to 1 because I find those support models against Jack especially are oftentimes pretty easily whittled down. You give Perdita some card luck. She is an absolute terror. I think she did 90% of my killing this game, even if it was just finishing models off. But I mean, she did all the damage on at least on the Prospector and the Hang, and did a significant amount of damage to Montresor, to Jacuna, to the Hang. Oh, did all the damage on the Guilty. So it was just a lot for that Tormented crew to handle. I give away Vendetta often. I'm bad about it, and I haven't figured out the best way to stop it. I am pretty good at hunting down the second point, and honestly, if they run a real beater out, I'm not too bothered by that. So my number of cards, like I didn't feel like I could discard cards for Take the Hit or for Op4L this game. That's a Jack thing more than anything else. But I had really nice value cards, partially because of Perdita's discard and redraw. The Hero's Gimp will really pays off just about every game, at least once or twice. I can't say enough. I talked about it last time. I'm going to say it again here. Fiona's seeming like an auto take. I'm going to do my next couple of games with Guild are going to try to not include her, but it's almost like Frank was last edition, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. So my instincts were good on the schemes. He wasn't in a place to score any of them because of the way I set it up. I wasn't really worried about him trying to do the scheme marker schemes, and that was right. Because Let Them Bleed and Vendetta on the 2 big models, we're going to use the same metrics for the first point. I knew what I was looking for, and that really helped a lot. But again, since the first point of Public Enemy happened, it was going to be hard for John to get anything really going because he'd have to come to me. And when he came to me, the buzzsaw of Frank and Perdita was there to really, really wreck things. Alright, so the Salt of the Week. I did not receive any audio recordings this week, but we did have some forum replies. We got this one from the amazing MRG, who I thank for his submission here. He says, saltiest moment was playing against Tormented with either the Witch Hunters or Augmented. The only things were not going well. He charged a wounded Hang that he could have gotten killed even with Incorp. All he had to do was hit it in order to give himself some room, and he flipped a red Joker and a 13. Because of Forever Doom, the red Joker was treated as the black Joker, and he couldn't choose the 13 instead because it was the black Joker, so the attack failed. He said he was unreasonably salty at the moment, which he profoundly apologized to his opponent about. I mean, I can't give him, I can't fault him on that. That red Joker, black Joker ability is one of the, when it hits, it's so frustrating. If it hits on an important time, I don't know what, it's just a hard thing to recover from. I've liked it when my opponents have been able to play a black joker as a red joker. That's an interesting thing to be able to play from your hand, but when it's a flip, it just feels so bad. So next week, let's get your salty videos or audio recordings. We'll get you salty live on the stream. If we don't, we've got some more text ones I can use, but I would love to get someone in full salty goodness letting loose on whatever thing has made them frustrated. So special thanks to my opponents, John, the proprietors of the gaming club, the Historic Haven in downtown Frederick, and my incredibly patient wife, who we just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. So if you want to talk more Malifaux with me or some other cool folks, check out the Swamp Fiends Discord or the Guild Facebook chat. If you want more quality phone media, check out any of the following podcasts: The Third Floor Wars, The Other Coast, Swamp Fiends, The Steam Powered Scoundrels, The Rage Quit Wire, Schemes and Stones, The Capital City Crew, Harlefaux, or Gaming with a Salty Slacker. We're really spoiled for choice on podcasts right now. I absolutely love it. There's some people doing some YouTube videos of their games and things like that as well, and I'm absolutely digging it. There is one, and I can't remember its name, but he's putting together these incredibly well-produced 30-minute battle reports where he's recording the whole game and just incredibly well edited. He's putting out one every Friday. You got to check that out, and I'll try to make a note of what that is in my next episode, because it really has been very impressive. So spread the word about the stream. I want to get the chat going, and I can't do that without having people in there. You know someone that you think would enjoy getting in on the conversation, tell them about it. I'm not advertising out of here. I post things on a weird place. I post things on the forums. I post things on Reddit. I post things on a couple chats. But the fact is, word of mouth is going to be what grows this stream, makes the chat itself fun. So spread the word, please. We'd love to have you on stream. But we will see you next Friday at 6:30. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. I'll be in the chat if anyone wants to talk some more Malifaux. But I am going to sign off of the video at this time. Thank you very much.